Comic books is a strange industry, man. It is really weird, especially on Twitter, especially in sort of mainstream normie comic book Twitter. Half the people are like, comics are booming. It's the best they've ever been. $1 billion in sales. This is awesome. And then on the other side, you've got guys who are like, no one ever makes any money in comics. This is all just a hobby. It's like, it's really strange. I want to start this video off by sharing this from Clownfish Guy, Neon. He says, comic books are so important to DC that they just dropped the comics from their branding ahead of their WBD earnings report. He goes on to say, office staff moved to co-op workspace, no booth for San Diego Comic-Con, and nearly finished films canceled. This is fine. This is fine. Anyone who ever points this stuff out there, you get an immediate barrage. Test it for yourself. You get an immediate group of people coming in to say comics are selling better than they ever have. It's awesome. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. I saw this earlier in my feed, and this is what I'm talking about. The contradictions that are going on out there. Here's a guy, Matthew Dow Smith, writer and artist, founder of something. These are his books, Amelia Shadow's Requiem. So he is, it looks like he's a comic book writer. Daily dose of comic dad. Listen, no one gets rich and famous making comic books. You need to know that going in. At best, you're known to a small group of people and make enough money to keep a roof over your head. But better than that, you can make some things you're proud of. This is the mentality. This is the mentality that is just, it's so ubiquitous out there in comics. I haven't crowdfunded on Kickstarter, but I see this mentality, in full swing over there. You'll get a lot of people that'll put on their crowdfunds like, we're not making any money on this. We promise. Everything is going into the product. We hate profit. Ew, yuck, gross. Look, he goes on to caveat. You know, when you put a hot take out there on Twitter, you get a bit of pushback. He goes down to clarify. Actually, he doesn't clarify. He sort of contradicts himself here. And yes, a handful of people have made a lot of money, but I thought you just said no one. All right. Anyway, let's not get into semantics here. And that's great. There's even a handful of people who at least are mildly famous in the world outside of comics. I do think that these things are exceptionally rare, and you can't really expect it just saying. Eric Hutful's for the win here. Comic book crabs in a bucket. This is the mentality. Look, he does say, yeah, I get it. There's a handful of people. Is he talking about this guy here, Jim Lee? I understand these net worth sites are pretty bogus, but look, at least they sort of they point out who's made some money and who hasn't. Don't like take these numbers with a massive grain of salt. Jim Lee, 10 million. Kevin Eastman, 20 million. Peter Laird, 20 million. I would think like these guys get screwed. The Ninja Turtles is one of the hottest IPs in the world. I feel like they should be worth at least a couple of 100 million. But anyway, this is what they're at. Frank Miller, 25 million. Kirkman, 40 million. And check out this guy here, Todd McFarlane. He's done very well for himself, if this is to be believed. 300 million. Now, I know a lot of this will come from his ventures outside of comics, but it does say source of wealth, comic book creator. All right, so are these the exceptions that, what's his name? Matthew is talking about? Maybe, possibly. Maybe he's just not aware of the new way, the new directions, the new possibilities and that amazing new technologies are allowing us here. I like Pete Callan's comment. Wrong. You just have small dreams. That's really kind of it. Let me show you this. This is former DC artist Shane Davis on his second crowdfunding campaign, raising $303,000. Now, before anyone says, but that goes to production and shipping. Yes, a lot of it does, and taxes and everything. I'm not saying that Shane Davis has made it to the lofty heights of, say, Frank Miller or Robert Kirkman. But this is a damn good start going out on his own. And the cool thing about Indiegogo is it has this little thing here. It can show you how much they've raised over all their projects. Shane Davis has raised close to $500,000 since leaving DC, working for a wage, striking out on his own on his creator-owned projects. That's a pretty damn good start. Who have I got here? This is John Malin. Used to work on cable, I believe. I think he was attached to Extreme Studios back in the day, worked under Rob Liefeld. At one point, mentored by Rob Liefeld. This is his latest campaign, $258,000 raised. And if we look here, $1.2 million over 7 campaigns. Let's go even bigger here. This is Ethan Van Sciver. I think, what does he say now? 29-year veteran of the comic book industry, a massive name, one of the biggest at one point in DC Comics over there at some point before he was unceremoniously canceled, booted out. But it's all for the better because check out, this is just one campaign, $1.2 million. These are not small numbers. This is for a comic book. I mean, sure, he got into toys on this one. So yeah, obviously a large chunk of this will get taken up. But this is still a large amount of money. $5.2 million raised. Direct to backer, creator to reader and fan model. 5.2 million over 21 projects. That's all happened in the last 4.5 years. That's all happened. I don't know what you guys qualify as getting rich, striking it out, making money, getting famous. That looks pretty damn good to me. Now I know what some of you might say, that, well, these guys are pre-existing. These guys haven't, had a name to a degree. What about this guy? Richard C. Meyer. His latest book that he sold for $1, unbelievably. Is this that one? I know this is Grand Bazaar. This is the one for $1. Still ended up making over $100,000, nearly 4,000 backers. And if we check out his 24 projects, $2.3 million, nearly 2.4. This is the guy who never made comics before 2016, I think. I know he had been attached to some, but not in a big way. He came into he crowdfunded his first comic in, I believe, 2018, the start of 2018. And there he is now, 4 or 5 years later, with close to $2.5 million raised. All right. Well, let's get back to this tweet here. These guys are the handful. Then they're the rarity. They're exceptionally rare. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe they're just the first wave. These guys are the ones that came in first. There were others that followed. Check out this guy, Clint Stoker. Now, these numbers are not as massive, but this is the second wave. These guys are building. And importantly, these guys are building from nothing. No name, no cred, just I want to make comics, sell my wares, and look at the successes that they've had already. 2,000 backers, 100,000 raised. Clint Stoker's raised over $250,000 through crowdfunding. Now, I'm not saying these guys are rich, but I'm saying that they're building their careers in comics. And the interesting thing about this is these are creator-owned projects. If one of these projects hits it big, they get to reap the rewards for that. They get all the benefits. So these are guys who've just started their careers and are on the up and up. The trajectory is looking fantastic. $250,000 raised in a couple of years, crowdfunding comic books. That's Clint Stoker. That's one of his books, Fatal. Here's Von Klaus. He got in as well on the sort of second wave or early wave of CG. And his latest book, 71,000. And altogether, 182. Well, let me scroll up here. 182,000 raised on his projects. Who have we got here? Eric Weathers, 100,000 raised, close to 2,000 backers. He's done 4 projects and raised 150,000. Again, I know these numbers don't qualify as rich. I know these numbers include production costs and everything like that. but it's a beginning, it's a start, it's a hope, it's a dream. More importantly, it's a worldview, it's a mindset. And these are creator owned projects. These guys are doing this stuff on their own. And like they'd never made comics before. Now, how high can this go? We only have to look so far as this. This is the extreme rarity. But yes, but it's actually the purest example that we have of the system that we are advocating for, selling comics directly through YouTube to the customer, and owning everything yourself. $3.37 million, close to 40,000 backers. This is, of course, Eric July, aka Young Ripper, the Ripperverse, his first book from the Ripperverse, item number 1. And this is what we're talking about. This is, as far as we know right now, this is the peak of the mountain. We don't know how much bigger that mountain can grow. That's probably a bad analogy. Well, mountains do grow over time, geologically speaking. The point remains. Yeah, there are people out there who are getting rich. Eric July is getting famous, by the way. You'll have normies come up to comic book people now and say, have you heard of this Ripper guy? He's made millions of dollars making comic. You should do that. How many of you out there have had that conversation now? I get it. He's the extreme example, but he's sort of the guy we can all look towards and strive towards and build towards. Look, this was me here. I want to give an example of myself. Never made a comic before 2020. Launched this thing, 1,000 backers. I get it. In the grand scheme of things, this isn't it isn't life-changing money just here by itself, but what it is life-altering. It's changed the trajectory of my life in ways I cannot even describe. And I have me before 2020 and after 2020, I am completely all in on this now. Because I see here is potential, and I want to build towards this, and then this. I want to build towards this, and then hopefully this. Maybe eventually one day this. Who knows? Could it be this one day? Why not? Why couldn't it be? The fact of the matter is, slogging it out for wages in anything, comics doesn't matter. It'll never make you rich in anything. That's like economics 101. And we've seen, I've done videos on this, and we've seen how notoriously cheap Marvel is to their creators, to the people who make the things that they sell. A guy like Jim Starlin should be sitting on $100 million right now. He created Thanos. Is he wealthy? I don't know. Probably not. We saw where DC is headed. The even successful, quote unquote, successful image comic creators. Let's put Kirkman aside and some others. Ones that are celebrated. They sell 5,000-10,000 copies or whatever on the direct market. Those creators end up making a couple grand for their books. It's not enough to just go independent. You have to be creator owned, I think. And on top of that, how do you sell your creator owned products? Look, this system that we're doing here on YouTube, the potential for it, the reach for it is, we just don't know. We just don't know how big it can get. But you've got to build your audience. You've got to build your fan base. You've got to maintain your fan base. You've got to excite them. You've got to engage them. You've got to make awesome product and sell to them. And yes, it's true. I get it. It is true. The Pareto principle is in play in all things. 20% are responsible for 80% of wealth creation. I think that's how it works. And that means 80% out there won't make it big. I get that. But it's also about your mindset. Yeah. You can resign yourself to that fate, or you can do whatever it takes to elevate yourself, propel yourself into that 20%, whatever it takes. If you get trapped in that mindset that you'll always be one of the guys who's just sort of getting by, You never will make it into that 20%. If we go back to my campaign, I started in 2019 with 50 dead subs on this channel. And it was already a crowded space. There were lots of people who were trying to get started. It was really hard to get into. And, you know, I had a couple of hundred Twitter followers or something like that. A couple of years later, after working on YouTube almost every day for 2 years straight, in a, you know, in a niche of a niche of a niche topic subject here, we've got an amazing audience in the chat here. These guys, they're out there backing books. 3,500 subs. We just crossed that line. 5,000 Twitter followers. You know, I ended up selling, and because of that, ended up selling 1,000 copies on my first outing. Now, of course, that's not rich or famous or anything by any stretch of the imagination. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, I'm an introverted guy. I actually ended up, I went out and I bought a microphone and I bought a webcam to force myself to start videos. And even having that, they ended up just sitting here off to the side and I would just stare at them every day. It took me a year to make my first video. But, you know, look, it's growing month by month, bit by bit. And as long as you can fight off that crab in a bucket mentality, that tall poppy syndrome thing where you have to like chop anyone down who, you know, seems to succeed above and beyond, you know, the general throng of people. Who knows how far it can go? You got to dream big. I certainly do. You know, everything that I'm doing, I'm working towards becoming a Kirkman or an Eastman, or now an Eric July. And yeah, I encourage everyone else to have that mindset themselves and just see how far you can go. No promises anyone's going to make it, but look, I don't see any other way of doing this and succeeding. Guys, that's it for the video. If you liked it, why do I always get that wrong? If you enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, share it out, comment, consider becoming a member, all that great stuff. You guys are helping to pay for the creation of brand new comics right here, right now. That's it for me. I will see you next time. All right. Bye.